Hi everyone, welcome to SIG KOUGAR Build Part 20. Before we get started into that, let me talk about this. About 3 days ago I picked this up. It's a barn find. Got it from a friend of mine. It was out in his garage slash barn. It's been hanging there for a long time. And I finally talked him out of it. And let me tell you a little bit about it. This is a Surmark Pit Special. I believe it was an ARF. Let me see, what can I tell you about it? It has a 60-inch wingspan. Up front is a Sato 154 stroke. Aluminum landing gear, which are absolutely whipped. They're so thin they needed some kind of shock suspension, but they never put it on there, so that's a problem. It has a 1-inch crack on the starboard side landing gear, about an inch long from the front towards the back. The canopy, ugly canopy, isn't it? It needs to be reconstructed basically. It has no wood structure underneath this plastic, so what I'm going to do is build up the wood structure around the front, because it's just an open box right here that this covers up, and I'm going to bring the structure out to the canopy all the way around, and I'm either going to cut this out or I'm going to use it as a template to make a new one. The monocoat is shot, absolutely junk. All of the stripes had the clear plastic part. Let me grab this here. Just fall right off when I cleaned it. It was covered with dust and bug poop, so I had to spray it and wipe it down, and all the striping basically came off. It's just that old. The monocoat's so brittle you can put your finger through it, so it's going to be stripped. I'm going to redo it in coverall. And a matter of fact, it's going to be on an upcoming video I'm going to do on Soak and Dope. And I'm going to start with a Ringmaster and put Silk Span on it. That's a picture of it. And then I'm going to do Silk on the Stearman that you've seen in a previous video. And then coverall on this guy right here. They're all going to be done pretty much the same way, except when I do the finishing on this, I'm not going to do a video on the restoration. Got too many other things I can work on, but it's going to be done basically the same. I believe the same paint scheme. If not this paint scheme, it's going to be a blue and white, just a color change. Let's see, what else can I tell you about it? The CA hinges on it are shot. Look at this. They're absolutely broken. Just cracked right off. I don't know if it's from age or just being CA hinges. You know, I'm not a big fan of CA hinges, so. The aileron connection here is very loose. The holes in the horns on the top aileron are either walled out or somebody over drilled them and they're sloppy, so it has to be repaired. The servos are installed. All the servos are in there. Complete radio gear for 72 megahertz. I don't fly 72 megahertz anymore, so that's going to have to be upgraded also. Everything is straight. I don't have to do any repairs on this whatsoever, except for a recover job and this. Oh, and the cowling. The cowling from an inch back from the spinner all the way down to the bottom, there's a 3-inch wide opening that they cut out. It's just gone. So that's going to have to be completely repaired. It has like 17 extra holes in the cowling for whatever they were trying to do, and a whole bunch of woodpecker holes basically where they tried to find where the screws go to hold the cowling down. I'm going to have to fill all those. Let's see. Oh, look at this. I'm going to tip it up on a wingtip. See that gap underneath the strut on the under the top wing? And there's a gap on the bottom wing on the strut, between the strut and the wing. That has to be redone. It's like that on both sides. It looks terrible, so I'm going to redo those also. And let's see, everything else is pretty much intact. It's all, the structure is really good, so not much else to tell you. So let me clear this out of the way, and we'll get going on the SIG KOUGAR Build Part 20. Fiberglassing and sanding. I'll get that right sooner or later. Kits, I think, are the way to go because you don't have that cookie cut, I'm not going to be using decals, so I'll be showing you how to put, as you roll it forward, just kind of press it like this, as hard as a brick bat for a leading edge. One last thing on tip blocks is that you want to cut outside the line. SIG KOUGAR build part 8, formworks. We are on step 29 in the manual. Come back, this is part 9 of the SIG KOUGAR build. This is a SIG Cobra. It's the 20 size version of the KOUGAR. I'm going to start this segment out by going over the items I need to fiberglass the model. I know I've shown it before, but the reason I wanted to do it again, just in case that there's some first-time viewers that are tuning in that want to just see the fiberglassing part, they'll have a fairly good idea what's going on. So let's get started over here. The resin. I use a Class B resin. Class B resins have wax, and the wax is so the resin dries hard. There is a Class A resin, like a layup resin, that you could add wax to that will make it dry hard, but mainly Class A resins are used for laying up layers of fiberglass, and we're not going to do that, so the Class B resin is the way I want to go. Now, I use the Bondo brand. There's also SIG out there, probably a few others. But let's see, the difference is SIG is a real good viscosity for fiberglassing a model. It will soak into the wood just enough to get it to adhere real well, and it flows out over the fiberglass very nicely. The reason I don't use it is because it's very expensive. So I turn towards the Bondo brand. Now the Bondo brand is a thicker viscosity, and it needs to be thinned to become more useful for models. And I thin it with a styrene monomer. I'll get to that in a second. Now when you buy the Bondo brand, it comes with a catalyst. It comes in this little plastic tube. And I will take that tube and put it into like a CA bottle. It makes it a little handier, easier to count drops if you're counting drops. Now to the thinner I use. It's a styrene monomer. I buy this from US Composite. I can't tell you the price because I don't remember. I've had it for a while. It lasts a long time. And the ratio of thinner to resin is 20 parts resin to 1 part thinner. And it gives you the viscosity you need to have it flow very nicely and absorb into the wood just right. Now this can is acetone. The acetone I use for cleanup, and I put it in this little jar. I just thought I'd bring the jar out. Jars are kind of hard to come by sometimes. If you have somebody who has a baby and they have a bunch of jars, grab them. Perfect for cleaning brushes, mixing paint, things like that. Medicine cups, 1 ounce medicine cups. I found that if you use more than an ounce, you're probably going to experience the resin hardening up on you before you get it all used up. And I found an ounce is about all you can use at a time and get away with it. Let's see, what else can I tell you here? I think that's just about it. For the medicine cups, stir sticks. I use a dental stir stick. You can buy something equivalent to this at Hobby Lobby, but any stir stick will do. Popsicle sticks, piece of wood of any kind. Brushes, I use a number 10. I prefer to use a number 11, but I'm out of number 11s, so I use a number 10. It's just a little narrower. The bristles on this one are nylon, and the reason I like the nylon is it holds enough resin to spread it out, but also when cleanup, it's not affected by any of the chemicals I use. And if I accidentally leave a little polyester resin in it and the brush gets a little stiff, nylon, you can bend it a little bit, and it breaks up that polyester resin and it flakes out, and you can reuse your brush. I've had this brush for 3 or 4 years now. You can use hair brushes. I'm not really sure what kind of hair this is, but this is a number 10 also. These are good because they hold a lot, I think it holds more resin in it than the nylon brush, but it will get used up quicker. I would say you might get a couple airplanes with it before the buildup is so bad up in here that the bristles don't move anymore, and you'll need more of those. These items back here, ruler, pencil, scalpel or X-Acto knife, blades. These are all basic things that you use whenever you're doing any kind of work on your models. So I just toss them up here just to say, yes, you might need these. Okay, Scotch-Brite pads. When you put a layer of resin on your surface, when it dries, it's going to leave a waxy film on the top. You'll need to get that off to put the second layer on there. If you don't, the possibility is that it's going to fisheye, and you don't want it to fisheye. You want it to stick well to the bottom layer, and that's what the Scotch-Brite pad is for. It'll pick up that wax, and you can put your second layer on there without a fisheyeing. You can probably use a light sandpaper, like a 320, and scuff it up with that. You don't want to cut into the weave, but you just want to take the wax off, and this will go into the weave a little bit and pick up, you know, in between the fibers better than a piece of sandpaper. All right, let's say we put on our second coat and it's time to sand it out. I use 80 grit sandpaper. You can use 60 grit, it'll cut a little faster. 80 grit I find is just right for me. You don't want to go lighter, because the idea is to knock the bumps down and smooth the polyester resin out the best you can before you primer it. And an 80 grit's good. If you go any lighter than that, you're just gonna hit the bumps. It's not gonna knock it down very fast. And the idea is to smooth it out, not polish it. So 80 grit, 60 grit. Let's see. These phony cards you get in junk mail. They're just like credit cards and stuff. When they get the junk mail, they find these rubber sticky to the paper. Well, I take them and I use these as spreaders for my epoxies or polyester resins, and they work real well. Very cheap way to do it. You collect enough of them, you'll never have to buy a spreader like I'm going to show you here. These are Bondo spreaders. You get them at pretty much anywhere. Myers, Home Depot even sells them, Walmart. And what I do is I will cut them into a usable size, usually like that, about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches. And I'll show you how I use these when we get to that point. But you'll need some kind of spreader. You can see I just cut it out of a bigger one. Sometimes you can buy from different places a spreader that's very narrow. Those are really nice, and they come in different sizes. And the bigger they are, the more parts you can get out of them. Like this one, I can cut up in probably about 4, maybe 5 of these. Scissors. You'll definitely need scissors for cutting your fiberglass. I use these for trimming around, but not very often. I don't usually trim my fiberglass until after it's on the model. Another pair of scissors. You got to make sure they're good and sharp if you're going to use them. Otherwise, it will snag and it'll not get a good cut. My personal favorite, electric scissors. You can't beat electric scissors for cutting fiberglass. It just goes right through it no matter what the grade. Well, I'm sure it would after it gets to a extremely thick fiberglass, but not with what I use. I've cut up, boy, it's a marine grade stuff you buy at Walmart, that heavy stuff. You know, it's a conventional heavy, like for marine patching or patching a hole in your car or something. And these will still cut that very well. This is a drafting brush. It's for getting eraser dust off of their drawings. I use this to create some static electricity once I lay the fiberglass on the model. And it won't shift that way. Once the static builds up, it stays where you put it. That's what this is for. Fiberglass. You can use any weight of fiberglass. I would say 3/4 ounce or less on a Cougar. But I'm not worried about weight. Or I'm more worried about weight than strength, because the plane is pretty much built strong as it is. So I am going with a 0.65 ounce fiberglass cloth. This stuff is really super thin. I mean, really thin. You can see me right straight through that. It's light, and it goes around compound curves really well. So I recommend this. The brand I buy is from Thaircraft. I'll put the website up on the screen for you. These electric scissors, though, you can buy these anywhere, sewing shop, Myers, Walmart, usually in the sewing department. All right, that pretty much takes care of everything here. I'll move everything out to the side and get what we need to get started. So I'll be right back. Before I get started, I thought I would let you know that I did extensive work on this as far as filling. What I like doing is when I'm done, I'll rub my hand over the surface, look for any imperfections, and I feel some things on here, some dust. But feel for little ridges and bumps or anything like that. Sand them out the best you can. And if it's necessary, like I found there's some imperfections here and there, fill those in. Some drag marks from getting shuffled around, poke holes, whatever. Excuse me. Just fill those in. I used the polyester resin and microballoon, and I decided, this is something I kind of hinted about earlier when I was putting the wing together, that I might end up putting the plywood underneath the wing. Well, I started thinking, am I going to putz around with this plane, or am I going to try to destroy it? You know, as far as wide open across the field, pull up, snap rolls, high speed dives, you know, things like that. Anything that would give me any kind of high G loading onto the wing that might rip my trailing edge of the wing out. So I decided to put that plywood in there. It's 16th inch ply. I sanded it, kind of beveled it down, glued it on there with I think it was 15-minute epoxy. And when that dried, I sanded it out some more as close as I could. And along this fiberglass, I filled this all in, give it a nice smooth look. So when I lay the glass over, there might be some ripples and stuff, but it's gonna be very, very light, and the primer should take care of that. I believe that's all I want to tell you about that I did to this, and you can see how much I've done there. I'll flip it over so you can see there's not so much on the top. I dropped a pencil on it, and I had to put a patch here. And I thought there was something here, but when I sanded it out, there was nothing. A little bit on this tip, some dimples that would have shown if I just covered it and then primed it and sanded out. Now I had to spot glaze that in. So I figured I'd nip it now and get it done. And that's it. Okay. I have my scissors. I have regular scissors. I'm going to show you how each one works on the cuts. And I plan on doing the wing in 2 pieces. I can do it in 1. It'd be pretty easy, but it's going to be a long piece. And if I do a short piece, I can probably get both wings out of one side. If you can see that. Let's see, get that over there. That I might be able to, with the opposite taper, flip this piece over and throw it on the other side. I'm not sure if that's going to work, but I'll check it out. And it'll be seamed down the center, a little bit of an overlap, maybe less than a 1/4 inch or whatever. And the best part about it is you don't have to fill that. You just sand it smooth, and you don't have anything to worry about. You won't even see that the glass is overlapped. All right, here we go. Lay this guy on here, about like that, roll him out. And I don't need a lot of overhang, but I do like a bit. It makes more sense to have extra than to have, than to have not enough to do what you want to do. So I like going about 1 inch. on my overhang. Now, we'll go with scissors. Scissors are good. These are fairly new. I haven't used them much. And they cut pretty darn good. As you can see, doing it this way is awkward for me. I would have had it spun around, but that'll take time to do. So you get out the electric scissors. Let me find out where I'm at here. And I'm just gonna go around this guy real quick. Voila. Electric scissors, guys, that's the way to do it. Now I will roll this piece up and put it away. All right. Oh, one more thing. I was checking out the aircraft about getting some more of this glass, and they don't have the 0.65 anymore. They have the 0.56, which is just as good. I mean, you won't notice the difference when you put it on. So if you order it and you say, hey, they don't have the 0.65, well, it's okay, because the 0.56 is just as good. And when you go there, on the listing, it'd be on the left-hand side, on the side, it'll say for fiberglass, and it'll say for models. And click on that, and it'll show you all the fiberglass for the models. All right, the brush. Build up some static. Now this side, the Airlon is done, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm more worried about getting my overhang right. I'm not gonna glass over top of it. I'll stop at the trailing edge and just cut it off. There's really no need to tuck it in behind, because when you spray it, it's gonna coat itself with epoxy paint and seal that up. And another thing is that you don't really need to worry about it splitting on the back side because it's so thin. I've never had a problem, and I've built a lot of airplanes and never had a problem. So, static electricity. Smooths out your glass cloth. Oops. Don't have enough static yet, evidently. It looks like I snagged my cloth, but I'm not going to worry about it because the polyester resin will fill that in. It'll still be effective, and you can get it pretty much smoothed out with your brush. And if you have pets like I do, you know I have dogs, sometimes their handy little fur, I know you can't see that, will get onto your glass cloth. So beware of that, because the static will suck that animal hair right down, and before you know it, after you glass it, there's going to be like a hair bump in there, and it's going to drive you crazy. You can't sand it out. You just have to go with it and take care of it once you get your second coat on there. So actually your pet becomes part of your plane. And yes, I've done that a lot of times. It drives you crazy. All right, there it is. Now we have to get the resin. Got my resin, mixing cup, catalyst, and I have a syringe. This is a syringe for refilling inkjet cartridges, and I went to laser, and I don't have to worry about this kind of stuff anymore, but I used to refill my own, and I have a few of these. So when I mix my 20-to-1, I use this. It has let's see, what is this? I'm not really sure what this is on the side. Milliliters or something like that. And I'll get my styrene monomer, and I'll suck a little into the syringe, zip it into the cup, and mix it all up. That's what this is for. So if you have one of these, they're very handy, so you might want to scavenge it and put it in your fiberglassing supplies. And I found that the styrene monomer will not hurt this rubber on the inside of the syringe, so I'm really happy about that. Okay, I don't think I'll need quite an ounce. Probably Well, we'll go with an ounce this time because I can't remember how much it takes. It's been a long time since I did a Cougar wing. See, we'll go. I'm gonna go with 3/4 of an ounce. If I need more, I can always mix more. Not a big deal. Okay. Here we go. So I'm just gonna pour just shy of an ounce because I have to add the styrene monomer to it, and it's minuscule. So that's just shy of an ounce. Let me get my paper towel here because, like I said before, I always wipe this edge off so I can get a good seal and it won't advance my expiration date, because polyester resin does have a shelf life, so the longer you can keep it sealed, I found the better off you are. Oh, one more thing I did. I mixed up some 15-minute epoxy and I lined this cutout for the nose wheel. No big deal. Give me a second. I always put this inner cap in, keeps a good seal on it. So let me pry this off and I'll be right back. For a 1 ounce cup, it says it's about 30 cc, okay? So it's 20 to 1, so I go from the 20 cc mark, that would be 1 cc. So it's gonna be about 1.5 cc, maybe not even that. So here we go. Make sure you get the air out of it. That's about it right there, okay? Spray that on top. And I lost my mixing stick. Well, that's not good. Sitting there fooling around and misplaced it. Here we go. Now just mix that in. It's going to take a minute, so I'm going to cut away, and when this is thoroughly mixed, I'll be back. All right. I'm going to move this over here. I'll put the cap on it in a second. But I want you to see how it comes off of this. It's fairly thin. Before it was coming off in a wider string off of there, so that's good to go. Set this down, and I'm going to put this back. I usually don't put this on when I'm going to use it a lot, but figure why mess around here. If you hear some extra fans going, it's my ventilator. Get rid of that smell. You know, I just got my microphone all wrapped up in my casters. So I'll be back in a second. Okay, that was kind of weird. Like I said, this is all mixed. And now I have to add the catalyst. And it says 12 drops per ounce. So if you're counting drops, take your time, count your drops. For me, I just go just about that much. Just one good squirt or a couple of short squirts like I just did, a couple short ones. If you've done this enough, you know how much it really takes. And you can guess the squirt pretty well. I've done this hundreds of times and never had a problem. I suppose you could if you really put a lot. I mean, a real big bunch of it in there, you might have a problem with it. But like I just did, the little squirts, never had a problem. Okay, that should be good. I'm gonna set this guy over here off the edge. Nylon brush. Make sure that all the fuzzies are off of it. Little fiberglass hairs, and we're off. I don't like to hold the cup. That's me personally, because I'll end up spilling it. So I keep it on my bench and I'll start somewhere, usually in the middle, and I'll work my polyester in. You will notice also as you're working it in that the glass is going to stretch, it's going to move a little bit. If you really feel that you have to, use a little masking tape, hold the edges. But once it starts to go down, as you can see, it stays put. So you don't really have to worry too much about it. Now I'm going to bring it right on up to the edge. You don't want to take too much time. Because the resin will start setting up here shortly. So I'm just going to work it onto the cloth as fast as I can. I like putting a good amount on there. Okay, how are we looking here? Overlaps look good. Okay. And you want to make sure you get all of the cloth. You don't want to leave any dry spots. I come over the edge a little bit. It's going to touch the aileron, but as it dries, you just pick it up and it lets go. And I'm constantly pulling the cloth, stretching it out as I go, making sure I don't stretch it off the center line, of course. And when I go over the wheel well, I go past the wheel well a little bit with the resin, so when it's time to cut this hole out, it's easier to run your blade around a little bit of polyester resin, and it won't fray the cloth next to your fine edge that you want to make. Just a little hint there. And if you see like the wheel well is sagging, you just keep working your cloth and it'll pull that sag out, even though it doesn't matter because you're going to cut that sag out of there. And you see how nicely it went around that fillet? Now when you go past that fillet, you don't want to drag your brush too hard. So I'm just going to go out to the side. Otherwise you get what I call a pull away, and it arcs across that little bit of a curve, and then you got to sand that excess cloth that's up. It's not going to hurt nothing, you just fill it with some more resin, but you want to do a good job the first time, and it'll kind of make you a little mad that something like that happened, but yeah, it's all part of the game. And over the edge a little bit. And you can always come back and wet the edges. I just do it because I'm here, and you don't want to put too much on to leave a glob. If you leave a glob, then you got to sand that stuff out, and that's no fun. I'm getting a little bit of a wrinkle here that I want to give the brush a little help with. There we go. Might need a little bit more. Okay, get moving. Constantly pulling the cloth and dragging it out to the edges. And I'm going to go past the edge of the leading edge a little bit. Just go over around the edge, and so it's wet where it's dangling. Just like on the wheel well, it gives you something to cut off. Makes it easier to cut off by a bunch. One thing I forgot to do, and I'm going to tell you about it because it's something that you should do, is have your little jar of acetone ready for your brush by the time you're done. So all you have to do is just dip your brush into it because it's all set and ready. I didn't do that, so I'm got in a little bit of a hurry because I was anxious to do this because I I don't know, for some reason I just love covering models, whether it's silk, coverall, even monocoat, even though I don't like monocoat, but even plastic covering material. I'm not a big plastic covering material fan, because for some reason it always seems to, after time it looks dirty and you can't get the dirt off. If you can use like different cleaners, alcohol works good, cleans out the little seams and stuff, but I found I never have to clean the seams out on a model that has polyester resin and paint, because you don't leave any seams, paint seams, unless it's intentional. And then you don't have to worry about what solvent you use to get whatever grime it is out. Because once epoxy is on your plane, there's no, well, as far as I know, there isn't any thinner that will take dry epoxy paint off. It's on there, and it's on there forever unless you sand it off. Looks like I'm going to run a little low here. Hopefully I got enough to finish. Looks like I might. Just about done. You're gonna say, ooh, that kind of looks a little lumpy and bumpy. And it's true, it does look lumpy and bumpy. And the reason for that is that the resin got underneath the glass cloth, and it's kind of floating it. And we'll take care of that here momentarily. Putting a little bit on my overhang, making sure I got all of it to the point where I want it. Okay. Coming down to the last. And I'm going to have to move this wing a little bit so I can do what I have to do. Move this stuff out of the way. And I have to pick this guy up so I can come around the edge of the wingtip here. And I'll have to go around the front of the leading edge also. Just tack it down. And if you don't go around as far as you want to, it's not a big deal either. You just take the top layer that you put, the layer of fiberglass you put on the top, and make it go a little further. A little bit more, and that's about all I got left. I barely have anything left in my cup. Now look at the way that goes around that compound curve. I mean, that is, to me, that's awesome. With monocoat, you'd be pulling and stretching and saying words that you don't like to say. But this is my thing here. This is the part I like. And don't say it's because of the fumes, because it's not. Okay, now I gotta hold this guy. And I'm gonna come around the leading edge. I'm running out of time here. I'm gonna have to. The idea is though is to quickly get it out of the cup, because just like epoxy, you mix a lot, and it starts to set up on you because a larger volume creates more heat, and the more heat, the quicker it dries. Okay, see, I got a little pull away right in here, so I'm going to work that. and make sure that stays down. All right, this is done. The important part is done. Another important thing is to get the goop off of my brush. Let's see, the jar's over here. And I gotta have something to open that up with. I'll use the back of my scalpel. And about that much. You don't need a whole lot, just enough to clean the brush. I'll leave that open because I'll probably need more. This is the important part. Make sure you get that brush clean. Otherwise, you're gonna be hurting. Your brush will be hurting, and you'll be upset because you didn't get it taken care of quick enough. You can see the acetone is getting cloudy. That's the resin floating around in there. Once you cap this and set it for about a week or so, you'll notice that all the resin will go to the bottom, and all the acetone will be on top. And if you're careful, you can dump the acetone into a different jar and remove that resin in the bottom if you want, or just throw that jar away, and you can reuse that acetone. So it won't go to waste really fast. The only part that goes to waste is what you got on your brush and you wipe off on your paper towel. Okay, that ought to be good enough. We'll cap this guy. Now, this is a time-oriented thing, so I have to move kind of quickly to do this right. I have my squeegee. Now, what I do is just this right here, and you take off as much excess as you can, because if you don't, you'll end up with a heavy model, and you don't want that. Now we start going towards the seam first, because there's always a chance of messing up your cloth if you don't. Okay, can you see all that resin I'm pulling up? You can probably see it dripping, but you want to get as much of that off as you want. I would say you're going to take off 2/3 of what you put onto the model. And if you don't do this, you're going to end up with a heavy model, no doubt about it. There are other ways to put the fiberglass down. I think I've explained it before. You have epoxy systems. I think West System is one. I've never used them, but one thing I do know about epoxy that I'm told by guys who do use it is that when you're once you put it down and you squeegee it off like this, and you put down your what I call a flow coat, that you can't sand the epoxy, so you have to put it down as smooth as you possibly can the first time. Otherwise, it's so lumpy, you have to add a lot of primer to it. Well, for me, I like to put on as much as necessary and be able to sand it off so I can, I don't have to worry about being too heavy. And with polyester resin, you can sand it, so when you put on your flow coat, it can be heavy in spots, that's fine. You take your 60 grit sandpaper and you knock it down. You don't want to go into the weave, of course, but you take enough down that you're making it easy to lose weight that way. And you're probably thinking, well, with all that extra, why don't you just put a little bit on and then drag it over the cloth that doesn't have any resin? And I tried that, and it didn't work out so well, because what happens is when that resin dries, it stays sticky. It almost feels like a layup resin. So I don't recommend doing that, because you're going to come up with a mess that you can't take care of, because it'll stay sticky. Okay, we're almost done here. And you've seen that other paper towel was just soaked with resin. And when I did under the canopy, and I resined underneath the canopy section, I think I showed you how much resin rolls up, and it's actually, you get more resin on a wing because of the bigger area that beads up. When you're done with squeegeeing everything off, you're going to notice that it looks fairly dry, and then you'll notice some spots where it still looks a little wet. Well, you don't need to go over it with your squeegee 100,000 times. What you do is you dab it off with another paper towel and dry it up. But if you see a lot of excess like I'm seeing here, that's when I just keep on squeegeeing it till it looks good, until it looks drier. And by getting all the excess, your plane will be lighter. Take my word for it. Or not. This is always interesting, coming around these compound curves. You gotta go slower. And you might have to do it more than 1 or 2 times, because you're taking a flat spreader over a round edge, and it's bound to leave something. Okay, I'm seeing some spots here. Okay, put this guy down. If you've got little hairs, don't worry about the little hair edges of your fiberglass, because that'll sand out, because it has resin on it by now. All right, now this is done, and what I'll do is I'll take a clean towel, fold it up into a square, and just kind of dab it around where you see the shiny spots. You don't want to hold it on there so long that your paper towel sticks. Otherwise, you'll end up having to sand that off too. Looks like I missed a little bit right here, but I can get that later. That's not a big deal. Trailing edge up on my plywood piece here. Up on a wingtip, a little bit on top here. You don't want to keep going and going and going, because it's going to set up on you, and you'll find out that you kind of overstayed your welcome, so to speak. And then you'll have more of a problem, but it's all fixable. All right, there it is. I'm going to clean off my spreader. My hands are sticky. You can wear rubber gloves doing this, and I don't do it, but I think you probably should, because you are working with a harsh chemical.
All right, now I got a little bit on my bench, so I'm gonna clean that off. There it is, it's one side. Let me sit down here so I can see you, and you can see me. That's all there really is to glassing a wing. Wings are simple. They're flat, fairly flat, easy to spread things out, easy to get the wrinkles out, easy to squeegee. A little bit more here. Okay, good enough. The more complex part will be on the fuselage when you're going around the fuselage and that long piece. That makes it a little more difficult. So I'm going to stop right here and shut it off for a while, let this dry. I'm probably going to do the other side off camera, and then we'll flip it over and do one half of the top. So I'll see you in a second. The wing is completely dry, and it's sat overnight. It ought to be dry. And what I need to do is trim this excess off. You can use a knife, but it doesn't do a very good job. What I suggest is a piece of sandpaper, 320 or 220. This is 320 and 220. I'll show you how both of them cut. I'll fold this little piece in half, make it easier to work with. It's gonna be kind of awkward for me here, doing it like this, but I just rub it on the edge until it cuts. You see, it's cutting. You don't need to use too coarse of a piece of sandpaper. I think 220 cuts a little bit quicker. You're gonna find spots where you went a little bit further down the leading edge or trailing edge or whatever you're cutting off of, but that's not a problem. You just sand it level. And you just work it until it all comes off. Doesn't take very long. You just kind of rub it on the edge where the polyester resin stops, and it'll come right off. Do this side here. Wing tip. Okay, that's all you do. What I like to do is just kind of give it a rub down. Get any kind of excess off that's not necessary. I'm not pressing very hard with sandpaper, just enough to cut the glass spot that was there. Just kind of smooth it up a little bit. And the wheel well area, do it the same way. Just kind of rub the edge until it cuts the cloth. Sometimes I will use a knife on curves like this, but this is very exposed, so I can get to it with sandpaper. And that's it. Leave it like that. I've already done this side. I've cut the wheel wells out. This I use a knife on. The excess right here, I'll take that out with the Dremel tool, just zip it out, no big deal. And I'm gonna get my fiberglass prepped for this. I'm gonna cut it out. You've seen the cutting part, so I won't bother to show that again. I'll probably cut enough for both sides, 2 different pieces, and I'll start on that. I have my resin all mixed up, and just need to put in some
catalyst. Mix this up real good. I would have mixed this up off camera, but seconds count on this stuff when you're working with it, so I thought I'd do it this way. Just like before, no difference. You just start putting it on. I got about a 1/4 inch overlap in the center section here that I'm going to be playing with. You have to be kind of careful around your aileron horns. You don't want to get anything down in there. You just kind of work it slow. Don't try to go too fast. Just kind of dab it in around it. Get your main seam done. You can see I left the servo in there. It's not going to hurt nothing really. All right, get her patted down good. Want to get a good bond here. Trying not to get anything on my wooden dowel. If that gets a little extra on there, then it's not going to fit correctly into the former. All right, just like before, I'm going to kind of start in the middle. I'm going to run a little bead up here, just a little ways. Then I'll work everything out to the outside edge from there. And just like before, taking it over the edge a little bit so it makes it a little easier to cut and trim off. Now this is where I need to trim a little bit. Let's see if I can find my scissors. I'm going to trim up and around the dowel so it lays flush. There we go. Now I can bring it around the leading edge of the wing. I'm going to hang it over the edge a little bit so I can get a better job of it. It really doesn't matter which direction you go with your brush, as long as you're pulling it out and away from the center where it won't bunch up. That's the main thing. Working your wrinkles out as you go. You see that my brush isn't excessively wet when I go over the edge. It's kind of dry, but it's enough to wet the cloth. You don't want to go with a heavy wet brush there, because it'll be like if
if you've ever soaked and doped and went over a open surface, if you have too much on your brush, it will push right straight through and leave a mess underneath there for you. And you don't want that. So to avoid that, go use the brush when it's just about dry and take it over the edge that way, so it won't leave no globs. Getting out to the end, it can be slow going. That's why I had so many fade outs in this one. But you've seen it all pretty much on the bottom side. Like I said before, the wings are dead easy. It's flat as long as you follow some simple guidelines, you know, like not having a goopy brush going over the edge, wetting the fiberglass that hangs over so it cuts better. It's pretty much a piece of cake. Just pull down the center and work your way out to the outside edges and keep going. And before you know it, you're done. And like I've said before, the idea is to get the contents of the cup out onto the wing as fast as you can. It gives you a little more working time because it's spread thin. And when it's spread thin, it doesn't set up as quickly. Why it's like that, I have no idea, but I think it's all because of the chemical reaction and heat buildup as it dries. And on the wingtips, make sure you drag it past the edge of your bottom layer of fiberglass. That way you don't have any open balsa wood. It makes it easier to trim. And make sure you have enough resin to do what you need to do. But let's say if you trim it all off and you do have a little bit of balsa showing, and it's not much to worry about, because when you come back around with what I call the flow coat, it will seal that hole up and you won't even see it. Now I'm going to make sure I have everything damp the way it should be. I don't want to see any excessive white weave. And it looks pretty good. Put a little bit more up in here, even though I'm going to be taking it off and shortly, very shortly. I like to have it soaked. Because like I said before, you don't want to drag the excess off and leave it somewhere, because it will stay sticky after you squeegee it off. I'm going to clean my brush. I'll be right back. All right, here we go with the squeegee process again. And I'm going to work in the center. I'm going to pull towards the center, towards the overlap. And you'll probably see this paper towel get wetter and wetter as I go. Just like before, just pull it and get as much off of there as you possibly can. Another thing this squeegee does, this process right here, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but it also pushes the cloth tight to the wood and it gets a better bond to the wood. Because all that excess resin is making it float a little bit off the surface.
So you want to get it off of there just to get a better bond, if anything else. Okay, you can see there's quite a bit come off of there. Okay, now I'm looking for wet spots. Get the excess off of there. See, I got a little too much there. That's one of those globs I tell you don't want to get. Well, that's it. It's about as far as I can go for now. So what I'm going to do is just let this sit overnight. I'll do the other side, and then when it's all done being glassed, I'll come back and I'll put on the flow coat, show you that. Then we'll get on to the sanding part, and we'll finish up the fiberglassing section. I'm going to cut the video off right here. I've ran over my hour that I usually like to do, and actually I'm pushing about almost 2 hours worth of video on this alone, and I'll break it up probably into 3 pieces because I've done what you've seen, and I've actually gone much further. Let's see, I've already done the fuselage part, and I think I'm up to the point of showing you the flow coat. So it will probably be, see, this will be part A, and then B, and then C, and that should do it. Okay, I believe that is all I can say for now. If you have any questions, just shoot me a message or comments. I'm usually pretty close to my computer, except for when I'm out at the field or doing club stuff, which I've been doing a lot of. So until next time, have a good one.